Hi, I'm Scrimshire and we are going to do a production walkthrough for the track Flames today. So this is kind of part two. We covered the kind of where it came from because the drum sound was begun here for the entire album really. And so last time we looked at where this kind of processing that makes this album sound the way it does came from. So Flames was originally Scream 2, which then became Scream 10. I don't know why that happened actually. I don't know why I then put it to the back of the queue. But it was the very first proper idea that I put down for the whole project. The first idea sounded like this. Which I'm super glad that I dropped. And there was something in it, but when I thought about it and was imagining where it could go, I couldn't really hear anything. So I went back to the drawing board with that and sat at the piano. Just to essentially sit into the groove and hear what I was doing and playing and respond, which I was just trying to do a lot more of. As a solo artist who's producing on his own in a studio a lot of the time, you're just layering up sounds, you're layering up ideas and you're doing that. But to actually listen to yourself, respond to yourself, respond to the beat that you've laid down, respond to the bass line that you've put down and make them cohesive, it's not maybe as intuitive as you think it would be. The drums are all created in addictive drums. Boutique mallets here, let's have a listen. So on this one I'm just using the hats on this channel, which I'll have played in separately. And then the mallets again here. And then we're driving them, like I say, through some heavy saturation on here, really slamming the Studio A800 tape. Really wanted it to distort. There was a track that I did a few years ago, which actually is unreleased. Did it with KOG as well, and it's just sitting in a folder somewhere. But that had really slammed drums, but doing it like this, and I really appreciated the feeling of it. And then just limiting the width of it in order that when we get to the bigger sections at the end, it really sort of like, you feel it, you know? And then because we're doing this distortion and pumping a lot with the compression over here, just really taking the peaks off and keeping it nice and flat and tight, as this is just the basis of the track ultimately. So from there we had the piano as well. Let's bring in that bass. Something nice and a little more melodic. Just really developing the harmonics in this. So within the first half of this track, what else have we got? Well, these arps. Arturia piano uprights here, boosting the bass a little bit, but not doing anything particularly fancy with this at all. Let's bring it up over here. A little bit of extra dynamics. Following the bass on the roads there. I really enjoyed it. I was having a nice time. I kind of was really enjoying the vibe, so I just kept playing on with this. And I knew it needed to build, so at this point I brought in more drums. Addictive drums. some great little percussion sounds in here, and really making use of the natural reverb sound that's built into this particular kit. I'm not sending this out to any other reverbs, that is the Addictive Drums reverb that's on there. What else we got in here? Building those chords up with the Rhodes. And as it developed, I had this lovely chorus which I really loved, and I could hear something beautiful expanding and growing out of these. Now this was the original sound that I was trying to really get for the end of this track, to make it this big, flourishing, orchestral sound. And I wanted these, arpeggiating strings that were just swirling around. I layered them up at a bit at a time. Let's do them a little. Just using the arpeggiator built in to Ableton, and running it into Spitfire chamber strings. It's a faster one, the pan hard left, a slower one, which is central, another fast one over on the far right. In the process of looking to get that right, I added an additional sound, a fifth sound, and it changed the whole thing. Because here, although I'm using these arpeggios, they're playing full chords. I've just copied out from the chorus itself, from the piano that I originally recorded. I've just copied that part across and brought it down into here. And I thought, do you know what I'll use? I'll use the Mellotron, because I use that on everything, right? I really do fall back on the same palette of sounds over and over. And I'm not that mad about it. I'll keep changing it up and evolving it as time progresses, but it's just good to get somewhere quickly and do what you know sometimes, and then think about where to take it later on. I started off with flutes. I thought a wispy high kind of sound might work. I tried choirs, which I always really love, but then these tenor saxes combined with the alto sax and then spinning them left and right. And that was doing it for me so hard that became the focus of the whole thing. The strings then gradually faded up underneath, and in fact in the final mix they're quite back, and they only really come through towards the end because they're just so busy, they're getting in the way a lot. So the final section was to add this drum beat, and it was just a beautiful act of pure luck, I have to say. Like, I just hit up on the Ableton push and I found the right beat straight away. Again, it's just such a good bouncing vibe on this track that it was really easy to just jump on and start messing around and playing each of the different elements. Once I discarded that first bad idea, and never be afraid to discard an idea if it's just not quite sparking for you. Once I discarded that idea and moved on to this and just started listening and responding to each thing that I inputted into the track, it really became a natural evolving experience for me. Over the top of this, essentially, boom, 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 layered up with this. Dropped the piano in this section because it was just filling the space too much, especially once I added vocals. So, the gradual fading of those, but the big focus being those mellotrons. With this album, I was kind of reluctant to do a straight up song, verse, middle eight, chorus, lyric, and what I wanted within this was just to kind of with samples and chop ups, but I wanted to do it with Faye, and I was actually only after a hook, a couple of hooks, But we ended up adding a few more lyrics in and developing it, and then I allowed obviously Faye to just explore and expand over that and deliver some extra bits and pieces. Let's maybe have a little see what we've got down here. Bit of a Carleen Anderson vibe. Blimey, Faye. She gave me all of this stuff to play with, and I essentially just cut it to pieces and dubbed it and used it wherever. She also had this great idea of these breathing bits up here, which is mind-reading because I was really thinking about something to punctuate those hi-hats that are happening in there. But this is what happens when you work with people you know and trust, and you kind of interpret each other's approaches and stuff. And Faye's been working with me for a really long time, since my second album, in fact, the track called Home on an album called The Hollow. And she gave me so much magic to play with, and it was just a case of orchestrating it into the right places. I didn't use this or a lot of the original vocals, but these little cut-ups in here are the main part of that. And yeah, that's kind of Flames. Maybe we'll take a quick look at the mix project, if that's interesting. Let's see. Okay, so looking at the mix project, it's actually a lot more complex than usual from an arrangement perspective. And I think this one, I was never sure if I was getting too into it myself, because I was just really loving the sound, and whether I was asking too much of you to listen to this much music. And then also I received all this beautiful stuff from Tamar, going through these sections and finding what felt like good thematic hooks and loops was really interesting. And the more that I played with those, and then I could find additional dynamics in the arrangement from what Tamar had contributed, it's like, well, maybe I can extend out, maybe I should extend that section, maybe I should bring this down. I was doing a lot of the work on Faye's dubs, so working with the Galaxy and doing all kinds of automation stuff in there to get these kind of whooshing sounds and stuff like that. So then I brought it really down into loops, and I started re-looping this section. And things like my Mellotron in here, cutting. Sometimes when you get into the mix and you're pulling things out, and you suddenly realise the depth of the groove and how it can really hit. And it really shows you the power of cutting stuff and taking things away. It's such a massive part of the job, is knowing to take things away and create space. Groove really exists in the spaces that you leave, you know? The fuller the track becomes, the harder it can be sometimes to really distinguish the power of groove within it. So it's important to do those things. And then you find these moments when you're like, well, hang on a minute, that's a vibe. But then you have to work out how to bring it back. Whoa! Dub overload. That sort of like presented some interesting challenges in how I was going to cut it and make that work. I needed a total breakdown. Tamar's work again, finding these little loops. Which I've taken and then layered up and harmonised, just pitched slightly, so we get an interesting kind of layer. The drums, the big ones in particular, so the additional processing here. And some clipping. All of my drums are running over, as always, to my drum bus. Not doing too much on that here. Knee compression and a little bit of extra EQ just to tighten things up, which I love to use with this saturation plugin. Into 1176, that is actually working. It's so hard slammed, that's crazy. Put that all into here. Just brings up the atmosphere in the surrounding elements of the drums, you know? Really using the limiter heavily on here. Trying to clear a little bit of space for the low end of the drums and just control the lows a little bit there and more limiting. Oh my God. Using 4 tools to probably do what I could do with 2. But that's just me. Sometimes you just roll onwards. That's Flames. That's out now in all good record shops. And it's from the album Paroxysm, which is out on May 26th. I hope you will love it and explore it and enjoy understanding how some of these sounds came together. Thank you so much for listening, as usual. Any questions, thoughts, things you'd like to know about this production process or any of the things I've talked about, drop them in the comments and hit the subscribe button and follow me for more of this stuff. I'll cover more of the album in the next couple of months. Cheers.